Secret friends, unite!
Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 395. This is your guide to the geek side. And if you are so inclined and want to listen to all of our wonderful podcasts, please subscribe to the Secret Friends Unite network feed to get the Star Wars, the Star Trek, the all things nerd, and the video games. And then when you're done doing that, please go over to our YouTube page to see our wonderful faces in more places as we talk about all the wonderful nerdy things you love, plus also see our wonderful backgrounds and all the prop comedy we bring to the table. So with that, I'm one of your hosts, Todd Oxtra, joined by Charlie Carden.
Woo! Take two, Scooby-Doo. Yeah, you're going to notice a little bit of a theater of the mind when we go from Phase A to Phase B, dealing with some weird Zencastr issues. Not only on this program, but also we had some weird stuff going on. Recording
there's
Code 47 this week.
There's a common ingredient to that. I wonder who it is.
I think it's the economy. Isn't that what people usually blame? It's the economy.
Yes, it is.
I've been in sales my whole career, and that's always the excuse somebody does. Oh, it's the economy. There you go.
Yeah, can't afford it this month. Sorry, Charlie. Hit the bricks. Yes.
So
this week, I've recovered from COVID. I'm here. I'm back. We skipped a week because of that. And apparently Zencastr got COVID too. So we are recording this again, recording the beginning of this podcast. And then you'll see a second part of the podcast where we look a little bit different. So be ready for that. But something that looks a little bit different is a cover where apparently the Captain America and Thor are taking on the baking squad.
The Ooze. Now this is nuts. Now this is, I was actively reading the title at this time, as you and I both know. The title had quite a bit of life to it because this was issue 395. They got into the 400s. It was they had about 5 years before we had Heroes Reborn and everything went away. But in this, we get Cap with Thor. Now Thor is wearing what were you calling it? The reverse tank top.
Tank top, yeah.
Which Patton Oswalt dubbed the chance to see the meat display. Yeah, it was just a chance for somebody with abs to show off their abs. So that's what they're doing here. But yeah, Doughboy was the version of the Adaptoid or something. He was in the employ of the Red Skull. So they're probably in the Skull House. That's kind of what's going on here. So that's the scene. But yeah, that was kind of two gross covers in a row. So the gross out. But this was during the early 90s, so we were teeing up to bad fashion. I was glad that Cap's outfit didn't change. He was the only one. He didn't have a big belt at this point, or the huge man boobs, which he got, when Rob Liefeld took over. So that was pretty stable at this point. But Thor was already showing some questionable fashion choices with that giant helmet. My God, that's nuts. It's out of control.
Yeah, I was just noticing the size of the A on Cap's head, and I'm like, that's a little distracting.
It is. You know what? It did not always seem to be that big, but it was that big for a long time. So I don't know. Weird.
It's the eye chart.
Yeah, it's the eye chart. Does it look better with number one or number two?
Yes.
Again, number one
or
number
two.
We'll
see how that goes. Yeah, so when you're done reading that comic, we check in with our gal pal, our senior news correspondent. So without further delay, Madam Webb, take it away.
Now it's time for Madam Webb's Rumors and News. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Madam Webb. We are ready for the news, Madam Webb, so thank you very much. But just let you know, it's a very special time. Your bonus is about to kick in a couple episodes. You get an extra nickel every episode. Aren't you excited?
Oh, man. How are we going to be able to keep up with that? I mean, she's worth it. Obviously, she brings us these hot scoops, but boy, a nickel? I mean, to do the math on that when we record every week, she's making an extra 20 cents a month. Compounded. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how the money works out. Hopefully we can keep it going, but
that's the rate of inflation, right? A nickel.
I suppose a nickel. Yeah. Back in 1992. Yeah. But first up, we have the return of I'm not even going to call him a controversial filmmaker. But certainly it brings to me shades of Kevin Smith, strong out the gate, but eventually got to a point in his career where he just kind of does whatever, and that would be Pennsylvania's own M. Night Shyamalama Ding Dong. has a new movie coming out. Now, Todd, did you see his last film, Old, The Beach That Makes You Get Old?
I did not. I was intrigued, and but I did hear it was one of the worst scripts of all time.
It was, you know what, and I backed this up with seeing, because April and I went on a tear and watched all of his movies at one point. Not that when Split came out, we were like, we ought to watch all of his movies. So I watched some of the ones I had seen. I saw like The Lady in the Water with Paul Giamatti, sucked. The Village, liked it. We saw The Visit, where the two kids go to see these people that they think are
not
their
fake
grandparents.
or great fake grandma.
And it's just the way that he writes dialogue. He's channeling George Lucas with this, Harrison Ford once said to George, much to George's giant frowning, "Hey, George, you can write this stuff, but you certainly can't say it." It's just very unnatural, not people sounding dialogue. I mean, in the old movie, The Beach That Makes You Get Old, which I just like to call it that, the kid was going around asking people, "Hello, who are you and what do you do for a living? Who the hell talks like that?" So anyway, it did actually end up bearing fruit later in the film, but still, it was weird.
Well, so yes, he has a new film, Knock at the Cabin. This stars Dave Bautista as essentially these vagabonds that really aren't vagabonds that approach this family that has gone up to a cabin to just have a vacation. Two men and their adopted daughter, most likely, because they are white and she's Asian. So I'm guessing that she's adopted.
So,
they're hanging out.
Two men in a truck. Yeah. Okay.
They're hanging out at a remote cabin, and all of a sudden, Dave Bautista and several other people, including Rupert Grint, Ron Weasley, comes towards them, essentially breaks into the home and says, we're here to stop the apocalypse from happening, and what you do next could decide your fate. And this does not look like it's going to go well. Never going to a cabin rarely ever results in something good.
I mean, if you run it down, Cabin in the Woods, Cabin Fever, it's going to be demons. It's going to be flesh-eating virus. There's just nothing that's really positive. Like you said, it's going to come out of going to a cabin. So
sleepaway camp.
Yeah, we don't really do camping in this family, though April keeps saying, "No, I'm going to get you to take it." It's still, in all this time, we never just end up doing it. So, you know what? I kind of feel like we're probably in a pretty good space. The most camping we ever did is we went to the UP, and April got an Airbnb and an honest God teepee. That was pretty sweet. I think I'll draw the line right there.
If a killer doesn't get you, the mosquitoes will. And then you get like typhoid. Who wants that?
Who wants typhoid in this day?
Glamping, folks. It's the
way to
go.
Glamping. When does this movie come out? Because obviously I'm going to go see it.
Yeah, so this will come out in February 3rd, 2023. Perfect time for horror. Usually they do very well that time of the year because not much is happening. Right. And there's going to be a twist in this. We don't know what it is, but apparently it's apparently based on a bestseller called The Cabin at the End of the World. So at least it's based on something.
And that is based on an Elton John song from 1980 called Two Rooms at the End of the World, of which there was a tribute album where a bunch of people did his songs in the 90s. So look at that. I reverse engineered that into some music trivia. That's what I'm good at.
Yeah, and Sandman had a short couple of issues called The Inn at the End of the World as well. And I think there was even Edgar Wright, The End of the World pub in his series. So,
there you go.
If nothing, this should be entertaining, if not high quality. Hopefully it is better scripted. It looks like he's got a partner on this one scripting it. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, he's used to live. So anyway, speaking of things coming to the movies that were previously spent for TV, we've been seeing Marvel shows, this show, that show, this show. And the shows, varying quality. People love Loki. People love WandaVision. Movies that come out this year have been total thumbs down. People have really just not been digging on it. So maybe Marvel has been listening to what's in the wind. They looked at their upcoming Armor Wars television program, which we've known about for a couple of years, and they said, we're going to make this film instead. We're going to make this new franchise fair. We like those, Todd, as you have said, we like those butts and seats dollars as opposed to people paying $9.99 for Disney Plus a month. You know what I mean? And not getting the ticket dollars. So yeah, this is now Armor Wars, which is starring James Rhodes, Don Cheadle, adapted from a a storyline in the 1980s of the same name from the Iron Man comics, where Tony Stark finds out that everybody is stealing his shit and putting it out there on the black market, makes it his mission to go out there and recapture and basically destroy his designs to keep them out of the bad hands. I think this is an awesome development. You know what I mean? This sounds like something that they could take it to a scale where it really belongs. And further rumors suggest, and again, in lockstep with things you see in the comic, that this could lead to Robert Downey Jr. returning potentially as an AI version of Tony Stark, which has happened more than once in the comics. So I am all for this. This sounds awesome.
Yeah. So I believe Secret Invasion predates Armor Wars. So we are going to get a prolonged story. No. In regards to the Disney Plus not schedule, not the comics. No. But I'm just saying in regards to that. So I think what can really work well is when you got TV and movies complementing each other when you need it. And I think what's been a big problem with the Disney Plus shows, like Hawkeye, I think worked really well, but sometimes it felt like it was stretched out too far. And it feels like the budget is just not the same as doing a big movie. Imagine if you're going to have big wars with like Colossi.
Yeah, I mean,
you want to be impressed. You don't want to be like, that seemed like it was cheaped out.
And Hawkeye's a great contrast because, again, it's a dude with a bow and arrow. It seems very low budget as opposed to, we got all these suits of armor and all this. You can't, on a TV budget, as it were, or the scope of it, like, I'm watching it on my TV. I've got a nice big TV, but it's not a 75-inch movie screen. It's my 70-inch TV, which is great, but it's not the boom with the crazy sound and all this different stuff. So this is definitely something I think that requires spectacle, and particularly if they pull a rabbit out of their hat and give us Robert Downey Jr. back in some form. He's been missed, and people love him. He is the MCU to an entire generation of young moviegoers. This could be Marvel's, next really big thing. Although we did see, since you and I recorded it, we did see obviously the final trailer to Wakanda Forever, and we snagged our tickets. That looks amazing, but
it does.
Again, the chance to rekindle glory, that's what it's going to take after a very middling, phase forward that we've all felt that Marvel's had. So who's to say? We're looking at probably 2 years before we see this.
You dropped out on me for a second, Charlie.
Whoops.
I thought we lost you. I thought I lost you. No. Like long pause and you were gone and I couldn't see you and I couldn't hear you. So
it's my raison d'etre, my reason for being. No, so we should be seeing this in a couple of years, 2025.
Probably. Ish. And the cool part is Ironheart was shown in the trailer for Wakanda, so I'm guessing she will be as part of this because she's right. That could make sense to team up with Rhodey and have a connection of like new and old. And this could be really good. So I'm hopeful, and I hope Disney does take an approach, make a movie where it's appropriate, make a TV series where it's appropriate.
Right.
So
scales, take it to the scales.
If it works, it works. Something also potentially could work really well is the fact that Deadpool 3 is finally announced for the MCU. This was essentially potentially supposed to be a D23. Didn't. We got it dropped on Twitter, and Ryan Reynolds is saying, I'm out of ideas. I don't know what to do. And all of a sudden you see Hugh Jackman walking around his house. He says, "Hey Hugh, you want to be Wolverine in Deadpool 3? Sure. Okay." So that is our plot. They've announced it. It's official. It's coming in 2024. There was a placeholder Marvel film on the schedule. Now we know that this. And we also got a follow-up to explain more about this. It was kind of a Q&A. But we got whammed. Wake Me Up Before You Go comes on where they explain all the plot points. And it's just them goofing around to explaining a fight and being goofy.
Right.
So this is going to happen. And folks, a couple things you have to do. We got to finally get Wolverine in costume because it has to happen.
Yellow spandex, baby. It's what everybody has always been dreaming of. That's where it's at.
Yeah, yellow and tan. That's what we want. I want the yellow and tan. I want the yellow and the blue.
It's that Christmas song, Yellow and Tan. Yeah, sing it with me, Todd. Yellow and tan.
Classic combination. Yellow and tan,
Yellow and tan. Everybody likes it.
It's like your grandfather's wardrobe. That's as far as it goes. Shades of brown.
Very 70s with a twill wool cap. Very Irish.
Shades of mustard. The yellow and the brown mustard.
Mustard.
Yeah. So
Oh,
I know a lot of people are worried about, oh, this is gonna detract from Logan and its presence. And I'm like, you know what though? Professor X killed all the X-Men in that movie. So is that how we want to end the
right.
X-Men's legacy?
Well, and I was listening to something else that said, well, hey, Logan is supposed to take place in 2028. And if this comes out in real time and it's supposed to be blah, 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 then maybe this is Logan before we got there. I mean, or maybe it's a pocket dimension, or maybe they don't address it at all because it's all played for giggles.
Just have Wolverine show up anywhere, right? He's in the
Yeah.
70s, in the 60s, in the 80s. He's in 2015.
Yeah,
let him just play around.
He's always old and he's always doing his thing. So it's going to work out. It's going to be fine. It's not worth being, Bummersville, USA, all about it. So anyway, that'll be fun. And they promised us this in 2024. That's what
September 2024.
So.
And why not? This gets us mutants in the MCU. And even if it's in a goofy fashion, I'm all for it.
Right. Why not? Yes, they can make their serious debut.
And Charlie, I don't know if this is phase 18 or 16 or 12. I don't know.
I mean, are we in phase 6? I mean, whatever. We'll go to the movie theater and we'll see it, and you can attach whatever significance to it makes you happy. So anyway, speaking of significance and making you happy, Todd, a video game television program that might not be a pile of poopy. This is actually something that April has played. I have not. I watched her play it. It was awesome. I thought she was doing really well. She can hear me in the other room while we're recording this bit. She's waiting me to come back so we can continue watching that movie. But I thought she did what I saw of it was really super cool. But the Last of Us is, Todd, tell us about The Last of Us for the uninitiated.
Yeah, The Last of Us is a video game that came out on the end of the PlayStation 3. It's by Naughty Dog Studios, and essentially it's an apocalypse tale. Instead of zombies, you essentially have the infected. There's this fungus that infects humans. It's spread through the air, and as the humans infect longer, they incubate and become worse and worse monstrosities. And essentially the humans have to protect themselves, with breathing apparatus so they don't breathe it in, so they get infected. And essentially dooms humanity. I mean, it becomes like everybody's wiped out. Humanity is all over the place in little pockets. And that's truly what this is. It's The Last of Us. We've got a main character, Joel, who has if you just watch the opening sequence of the video game, it's very riveting about a person who's there during the outbreak and he loses his family. That's Joel, and he's basically lost his way several years later, and he's tasked to take Ellie and bring her to a group called the Fireflies, which are kind of like the Resistance. And that's kind of the plot and how those two form a bond to survive. Is really, really fantastic. There's 2 games. The first game is they say the first game is about love. The second game is about hate. And they follow that theme. So the first one
everyone knows
caring for someone.
There's a thin line between love and hate. Bobby Womack. Anyway.
Yeah. So the trailer was really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. We got
right.
Pedro Pascal and the Mandalorian, and who are some of the other stars that we see in here?
We've got the lady. Was it Dormont? It was the young little lady from Game of Thrones. So she's Ellie. Then we've got a few other well-known actors. I'm looking for the cast. Bella Ramsey, that's her name. Ellie. We've got Meryl Dandridge as Marlene, Storm Reed as Riley, Gabriel Luna as Tommy, and Nick Offerman as Bill. So strong cast. This is by the showrunner did Chernobyl for HBO Max. This is on HBO Max. This should be high level, and then they do show the infected. They're called the clickers. They make weird noises.
The clickers,
essentially fungus. They can't see, but they can use sound to attack people. So it's got some really cool story twists. It's really neat, and it's great to see the dynamics of that relationship of just Joel and Ellie versus like a Walking Dead, where it's a whole community. This is truly 2 people.
Right.
Who only can trust themselves to survive. So I'm looking forward to this, and it looks like it's going to ape the storyline pretty well, but it's bringing in new characters and things like that to build upon it because, if they want to make this be multiple seasons, they've got to milk it because really we've only got the 2 games. So to make it worth it. And I could see where it could really explore and go beyond the games even too. So we'll see.
Sweet. Awesome. Good deal. All right. Wrapping it up. We have, and again, we're going to expand upon a little bit about this at the end of the show when we get into the Thunderdome, talking about our Canadian classic. That would be Scanners. Looks like the folks over at HBO are looking to take the concept and bring it into a more modern lens. Now, Scanners, as I said, we're going to talk about later, came out in 1981. David Cronenberg, who has done a lot of wacky stuff in his time, is an actor who's actually currently on Star Trek Discovery, which is just a crazy turn to think he's a psychologist doctor on that show, which is just kind of a really weird turn. But he's made, like you said, a lot of body horror films in his time. And this was one of the originals. I had never seen it. Exploding Head is the most famous portion, but centers around a rebellious leader named Revok, who was played famously by Michael Ironside. And he and his crew want to take over the world, sort of like an extra bloodthirsty Magneto. But the corporation and its scanners are sent out to stop him. So that's a crazy cool concept. So this is basically the X-Men with obviously a lot more bloody violence. And if it's on HBO Max, it's going to be well produced, well funded. It's not going to be a network level of Drek potentially. So this sounds awesome. So cameras are rolling on this, and I would feel like this would be something we'd probably see in maybe end of next year, early 2024. So it's pretty sweet. I'm excited.
Yeah, and the people behind this are actually pretty impressive too. The person behind it is the guy who wrote the episode of Black Mirror called the USS Callister, which, Charlie, if you've not seen, I highly recommend the episode because it is
got to get around to it. Everybody,
the TOS. It's taking that. It's really, really well done. Very dark.
Yeah.
Really great episode. But he's going to be writing it. And then essentially, you've got the director who's going to direct some of the pilot is by the guy who behind Lovecraft Country, which I really liked that series on HBO. I watched the first 2 episodes. I'd like to watch more of it. That was really, really well done as well. So I think this could be a cool series if it's done well with a budget, today's sensibilities of quality and what they can really bring to the medium, right, especially with good writers and showrunners on HBO. This could be cool. Taking a probably, like you said, this is a very niche movie that many people didn't hear of. You only saw the one sequence. I'd want to see it for many years. We're going to talk about this. We're not going to spoil more of it, but if they can build on the concept, make it better, could be a sequel. Don't know, but this could be cool.
Could be. Good deal. I like it. So yeah, that'll be fun. So like I said, my vibe tells me we would see this probably in 2024 at the soonest. But as we're all slave to the streaming world. And as you can take and leave streaming things as they come and go, this is something that you can pick up. So anyway, all right. Well, that's it for the news. Todd, time as always, it's time to get up out of here and get ourselves over to the place down in Nasty Town, where the funky stuff happens. I'm talking about the Geek Easy. Let's get on down there, talk about what we're enjoying. Time to go.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
We're sitting in the Geek Easy, drinks are poured, and we are ready to get our nerd on. So, Charlie, the series has finally dropped. One of your favorite Heritage series is now renewed. We're not going to talk about the old one because you've talked about it before. We're going to go right into Quantum Leap.
And we both have.
The new series.
So this Quantum Leap, we find out really quickly. There's been 2 episodes out. Todd was confused and thought they dropped to it once, but it's been out for 2 weeks now. There'll be a 3rd one by the time you've heard this. But no, this show is very much a continuation of the classic series. So, we've now jumped forward. The original series ended in 1993. So we're now 30 years forward. They do reflect on the real life death of actor Dean Stockwell, who played Al Calavici. That does get a mention, and then is further developed into the 2nd episode as being part of why Ben, who is our physicist scientist, becomes our quantum leaper. He goes prematurely. You don't know why he went prematurely, but that does really echo the classic series because Sam Beckett, played by Scott Bakula, did the same thing, leapt into this fancy device that projects his consciousness into the past, where he leaps from person to person within his own lifetime to, set right what went wrong, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the same kind of thing, but we're getting a little bit more partition with Project Quantum Leap and characters there. So the AI, or the Al, as it were, is actually played by a woman who turns out is actually Ben's fiance, but he doesn't know that because he has the Swiss cheese brain, which is typical of leaping. But we have a support staff, including a transgendered individual whose character's name I'm forgetting. And then we have the character of Magic, played by Ernie Hudson, who is a heritage character that Sam leaped into in order to save his own brother in Vietnam back in 1970. Strong start. I talked about this a little bit to someone. Was I talking to you? I was talking. No, maybe I was talking to April. In the first episode, he leaps into Philadelphia in 1985. When Live Aid was happening in Philadelphia in 1985. They did first of all, very obviously filmed on the New York City backlot at Universal Studios, which has been seen in 50,000 things. They don't even bother to try to cover it up. And it's like it's a bank heist and he's the driver. And while he's waiting, he gets out of the car and he's confused, but there's a movie marquee that says double feature with, Goonies and Iron Eagle or something. And two people walk by and they're trading cassette tapes. And it was like, can we just jam some 80s into like 10 seconds worth of whatever? So pretty corny, pretty networky.
But everybody's dressed like it's 2022.
Right, exactly. Yeah, all 80s things happening at the same time. Yeah, you're right, because this fashion is very cyclical. So I enjoyed it. The second episode was a little bit of you saw this at the end, Todd. He jumps into an astronaut, so it's kind of an astronaut episode doing stuff in space, which was kind of fun. I like it. There's, like I said, there's a B plot happening at Quantum Leap where, why did Sam leap? And you find out at the first episode, it has something to do with one of Al Calavicci's. He has 4 daughters, which was established at the end of the classic series. One of them might have something to do with why Ben leaped or decided he needed to jump in and start quantum leaping. So they have plot threads they're going to develop. But I don't know. As a standalone, I think it was pretty good. Todd, what did you think?
It reminds you network TV doesn't do well with genre. I don't think the show is good, not well written.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay.
If it didn't have Quantum Leap on it, Charlie, you wouldn't be watching it. Well, that's the thing. I think this show does not do anything very well. It just is Quantum Leap. And so I'm like, yeah, I didn't think there was anything here that was dragging me to say, I want to come back.
Right.
It just is not a good show. Because I didn't think the acting was good, and I think the plot's like, oh yeah, I remember bad, the way TV used to be when it wasn't well written. This feels like it's that, and it's on NBC. NBC is not a good network. They don't make any good shows.
Well, like I said, but they made the original show, and it was really great. But yeah, that, you know what?
That was 30 years ago.
Right. And you know what? That's a show that got better as time went by. So anyway, I have not checked into if anyone else thought it was great. I don't know if the show's doing well. Again, I don't know how it does in the ratings. You'll see my air quotes if you're watching us on YouTube. I don't know how the metrics are going to measure it. So we'll see if this survives or not. I have no idea. So anyway,
it's procedural. This is the network that's Chicago TV. It's the procedurals they know how to do. It just happens to be those flashy one. Yeah.
Those are those Chicago Fire, Chicago Hospital. And I always tease April. She doesn't watch them, but she watches some procedurals. I'm like, Chicago Department of Public Works. Oh, we got to pick up the garbage. Anyway. Okay. So that was TV. And then just before we got home, April and I went out to the movies. Obviously, we go to the movies all the time. I talk about that pretty frequently. But been seeing this trailer for this new horror film. And again, we're now into horror film season. But it's called, and I said The Barbarian, but it's just Barbarian. Okay, so there was a trailer several months ago, which is how we knew about it, that paints a picture of a woman pulls up in front of a house in the pouring rain. The light is on. It's established that she's going into an Airbnb, and she goes there and opens the lock, and the key's not there because there's already a dude in there, and it's Bill Skarsgård. So already you're like, the guy from It is in my Airbnb. This is going to be a bad situation. And that's the whole trailer. Because he lets her in. She's like, well, maybe you should just stay here or whatever. And you see her go and lock her door or whatever. And it's just, you're getting like, okay, well, Skarsgård is a serial killer and he's luring this girl in or whatever it is. So that's what got us wound up thinking that the movie was going to be like. And we get there and Todd, we were talking about this in the pre-roll. I know you said you wanted a little bit more juice. This movie is not about that at all. it goes through that. Skarsgård is, we're watching it the whole time. We're like, there's going to be a moment that he's going to flip a switch, and then he's going to hit her over the head there. And early on, he's making her a cup of tea. I'm like, oh, he drugged her tea. Early on, he's pouring her a glass of wine. Oh, he drugged her a glass of wine or something. They're sitting having conversation, and he's like, well, I'll sleep on the couch. You sleep in the bedroom. She gets in the bedroom and doesn't lock the door, and then she wakes up in the middle of the night, and the door is open, and Bill Skarsgård's sleeping on the couch having night terrors. And you're like, oh, what's going to happen when she goes to wake him up? I'm going to stop my analysis right there. Go see this movie. If you enjoy the psychological thriller, if you enjoy twists and turns and shit that you just did not see coming, this is the film for you. That's what I'm going to say.
So this is maybe more black phone than like a gross out type of movie.
Yes.
Okay. I like those.
There's definitely aspects in the second half of the movie that is disturbing imagery, but I would not say it's I wouldn't say that's a lot of gore. There is a murder that happens within it that I would describe as gore, but it's a lot of very fast cuts. So it's not, and there's some implied gore, but it's almost dark humor for a later death in the film. So Todd, one of your $5 Tuesday movies, go see this. Trust me, I think you will find it's worth it.
Yeah, my movie watching has kind of got upended by COVID.
Well, but of course, yes.
I'm looking to see some movies in the future. That would be great.
It's fun. I looked at the box office. They pulled about $35 million, I think, this month. I don't know if that makes it a success for this kind of genre. It came out on did it say it came out on the 9th? So I guess it's been out for a while. Maybe it's not that successful, but we enjoyed it, and that's really where it's at. So,
well, because I know Smile was the big horror film that came out this week,
right.
And that movie's getting interesting reviews too. So it's definitely
maybe that's one that April and I will go see sometime this week. Sorry, mandatory yawn. Maybe that's one we'll go see this week. So anyway, all right, Todd, you're
good job muting and then calling it out.
Whoops. Oh no. I have overplayed my hand again. Todd, all right, Todd, yes. You're talking about a couple things we've both seen. So get ready for some interruptions.
Yeah, we missed like we said, we missed last week, so we've got a little more things to catch up on. So one of those things is Andor dropped. We have 4 episodes now that I've watched. I'm assuming you've watched all 4
right.
as well, Charlie.
And a quick sidebar, if I can. You faithful listeners will have noticed we did not have a holocron this week. Our friend Mark lives in Nova Scotia. They were blasted by Hurricane Fiona. He lost power for the better part of a week. So what Mark and I decided just today, we're going to come back on regular schedule. So a week. By the time you listen to this, it'll be out the following Monday. We're going to do a super episode where we cover the first 5 episodes. So stay tuned.
Yes. So this will be my take on Andor, because Charlie, you're going to go more in depth than we will to this one. So you get my take. So Andor is essentially pre-Rogue One, where you've got Cassian Andor. Essentially, it's his origin story. Adonai a kid, grew up on this like Lord of the Fly planet, got basically found, and now leads a life where he's trying to find a sibling. That's kind of like the spoiler, but that's kind of like what happened in episode 1. That's kind of where we're at. This series is essentially the foundation of the rebellion, but when it's Star Wars, somebody's always rebelling.
Right.
So
much rebelling.
Yeah. So this show is going to be what?
12
episodes?
It's going to be 12 and 12, so 24 over 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're 25% is complete, and I feel like this could have easily been one episode that inspired it all. We had essentially one action sequence, and the rest was kind of
talky.
Just a lot of talky and a lot of things that I feel like are fine, but didn't add a lot of value and drama and compelling narrative.
Like
I think the show,
yeah, and I've said it time and again to other people I've talked about. I said there's no mystery on why day 1 they dropped 3 episodes, because the first 2 were talky and boring, and it's even very telling that when Katie and I, we went with our spouses and saw Rogue One in the theaters at the end of August. In IMAX, which was great, but they had special sneak peek of Andor. They showed the scene from the third episode when they're in the factory, the talky part, and then the actiony part. So it's really telling that the 2 segments that came before that were so boring and unnecessary that the recap of the 3rd episode really would have got you where you needed to be. That's really telling.
Yeah, and I'm struggling right now to. I know they were supposed to be like how bad the Empire is. They're talking about how bad the Empire. They're not showing it, and I think that with that lack of context, it just feels like yeah, it's bad. And Cassian Andor's going to shave, and he's going to be a spy, and he's going to get in there,
and he's going to shave.
And I just think if this didn't have like a TIE fighter going by, this would be on HBO Max somewhere, and people wouldn't care.
Right.
I just don't think it's that good and that compelling without Star Wars saying this is good Star Wars or this is well done, well produced, all this stuff. And I just feel like once again, I don't know. It's I feel like if this didn't have Star Wars, I probably wouldn't watch it either. It'd be like, oh, this is another show. I have a higher bar for science fiction than Star Wars is just providing. Star Wars is essentially just like it's delivering pretty mediocre content that people just like because of the brand.
It's
I hate to say people, yeah.
It's tough to compete on its own legs, is what you're saying. So yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
And because they know it, they don't have to worry about it so much. Because again, there's going to be an audience that's built in there. But the vitriol that we felt for Book of Boba Fett, the vitriol that we felt for Obi-Wan has not really come out so far because people are saying it's the least member berries, it's the least nostalgic, it's the least Easter eggy show that's come out. And I think you and I can both agree, at least to this point, that that's a big relief, and that's a great thing that we like.
It is,
because
at least you could watch this and say, okay, the acting's good, the cinematography, the sets design is good. It's just the story right now after 4 episodes, I kind of feel like it's not pushing me forward.
Right.
Yeah, they're gonna go in and go into another empire holding because they've never done that before. They've never snuck into I feel like these plot lines have been repeated so often. I'm like, that's what we've been doing with Star Wars. They always sneak in, are hiding, and if you show me that plot line one more time, I'm gonna be like, yeah, because they don't do that every time. Right. Come on, Star Wars, be better and do something else.
We had the same experience because we did finally tune back into the Orville, which was something you and I have been talking about for weeks. Yeah. I'm like, April and I were flipping through who we were like, well, should we give it a stab? We're like, yeah, okay, fine. And it's just the same. It's 2, 3, maybe 4 different TNG plots crammed into one episode. It's just a copy. And the people who don't want to see anything different. So the people who hate New Trek love the Orville because it's the same shit. It's just, I will say the Orville has at least moved to the point where it's not like it was in the first season with the very sub-sophomoric and immature Family Guy style humor. That's not present anymore. Now it's a little more serious. It's a little more dramatic, but it's still just ripping off Star Trek. And it's just, they just don't even try. It's bad. It's bad. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not feeling the call to go back and watch it.
It's like Andromeda or one of those Stargate SG-1s, which were
those went out for like 10 seasons each show. I mean,
know,
and people absolutely fucking love them. It's just, we do live in this embarrassment of riches of entertainment where there's plenty for anyone. But anyway, all right, what else do you have?
Well, something that's obviously more like lower stakes as you can get even lower.
The lowest stakes. Oh my God.
Yeah. So let's put it this way. Hocus Pocus is a huge thing for a lot of people.
Yeah, very huge for a lot of cosplayers I know, without a doubt.
Yeah, and that's fine. It's for other people that love it. My wife loves it. It's something that she watched a billion times. It is comfort food. It comes through, and it's got a sense of charm for it. It's that spooky, not scary.
Absolute poison to you, Todd. Comfort food. I know.
Well. It is what it is, and like it's just when people proclaim comfort food as the best thing ever, and I'm like, comfort food is comfort.
Comfort food as a genre.
Nobody proclaims a Hocus Pocus is the best thing ever.
You know what?
Love it.
That would
it's
be
just not the best thing.
That
ever.
would be a great installment of, remember the old Scary Movie franchise? Comfort food. Just Comfort Food the movie. There you go. All right, somebody get me a check. Let's get rolling on this bitch. I'll write the script.
Yeah. So Hocus Pocus 1, I've only seen clips. I've never seen the whole movie.
Oh, really? We just started watching it again today. No. It's on the rotation.
No. And I asked the wife, I'm like, you know what? I've never seen it. Should I watch it? I mean, I'm assuming I won't be lost, but I mean, is it add value? Things like that. She goes, no, just go in. I'm like, okay. So I've seen all the main things that tell me exactly what I need to see. I'm like, yeah, okay. So we watched Hocus Pocus 2 on Friday because that's when it came out. and it's a cute movie. I mean, that's the best I can say. It's not scary. Everybody's having a good time. I liked some of the new additions of the cast. I thought the shop owner, I can't remember his name, but he just seems to be in everything these days.
Sam Richardson. Yeah, he was
he's great.
He was in this great show that was called Motown or Detroit or something. It was on Comedy Central, and they were two low budget ad men in Detroit. I loved because it was Mort Krim showed up in some of their videotapes and stuff. Like it was very very Detroity. By the way, I even forgot to mention Barbarian, completely set in Detroit, framed in Detroit, the Brightmoor neighborhood, which is one of the worst, horrible ghetto neighborhoods in Detroit. But it was filmed in Croatia, so they were able to pull it off.
Ah, yes, good stand-in. But yeah, I mean, Hocus Pocus is just it is what it is. Tony from Arrested Development.
Tony Hale.
Tony Hale. Really good too. Everybody just this is the movie you do where you want to show up, you want to ham it up, just have a good time and be goofy. There's a couple of musical scenes that aren't very good, but you know what?
No,
it's fan service for the people that love it.
Right.
Bette Midler, all the main cast are just it's something they love. And they put their love into it. I can't say more than that. It's definitely for kids and people who are kids at heart.
I can certainly say they had to use less makeup trying to age up the 3 stars because it's a 30-year-old movie. But it was funny because we started watching the first one, and I guess I had only seen it initially a few years ago because I didn't see it as a kid. I mean, we weren't really a Disney household. We were Star Trek and Star Wars household when I was growing up. So we hadn't seen it. But yeah, I didn't realize that. Yeah, they in the beginning of the first movie they had.
Well, Charlie, you were a junior in high school. I'm guessing this is not in your wheelhouse. I'm going to go see this on a Friday night with my friends because it was in the movies, in the theater.
If I had a girlfriend, I would have, but I did not. So there you go. A girlfriend who loved Disney shit. But that is how I saw The Little Mermaid. Same thing. But it was just they were in old age makeup. They had absorbed the essence of a child, and that's how they became young. So they didn't end up doing that in this one, and they just looked their own age. But Kathy Najimy really lost a lot of weight between this movie and the last movie, which you generally don't see over 30 years. So I hope she's okay.
I'm guessing so. Some people, they make a life change and they
true.
Try to take care of themselves.
Very true.
Hocus Pocus 2, if you know what you're getting into, or if you've got young kids and you like more spooky than scary stuff, check it out. It's on Disney Plus. Everybody's got it.
Right. Everybody's got it. Well, that is it for the news. So what it's really time for, we're going to be revisiting something we talked about back in the news, but we'll be doing it in the land down under. That's right. We got to get to the airport, to Air Qantas, to get us down to the Thunderdome. The mutants are waiting. So let's do it.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome.
Thank you, Tina. We're sitting in the Thunderdome where the mutants have been gathered for a topic or game to be entertained. And this week, we are kicking off, a little delayed, Shocktober week 1. My goodness, we've got Scanners this week. So Scanners was released January 14th, 1981. A budget of $3.5 million, and it made 14.2. So 4X, that's not bad.
Not bad
for considering
what they spent in those Canadian dollars. Yeah, it filmed because whenever I see a movie, I immediately jump to IMDb. I want to know where they shot it. This was shot in and around Montreal, not Toronto.
Very French.
Not Toronto, which is where you see a ton of Canadian stuff. Not Vancouver, which is where you see a ton of Canadian stuff. But yeah, Montreal. So there was they were in the shopping mall, and that was the opening sequence. And there was definitely red was the predominant color of everything. I guess that's very 80s Canadian because the whole mall, it kind of had the scope of like the mall from Fast Times at Ridgemont High with all the elevators and the different, big escalators and stuff, but everything was red with blinking lights. I'm like super 80s. But yeah, anyway, to my point, you saw some of the signs in the background of the food court were in French and whatever. So there you go. Frenchy French.
Very good. Very good. So Scanners, the plot is as such. A scientist trains a man with an advanced telepathic ability called scanning to stop a dangerous scanner with extraordinary psychic powers from waging war against non-scanners. This was directed by David Cronenberg, written by David Cronenberg, starring Jennifer O'Neill, Stephen Lack, Patrick McGowan, and Michael Ironside. So I guess to kick this off, I would say if you're not familiar with David Cronenberg, that's kind of the best thing to launch it here. David Cronenberg is a director that is very odd. He loves body horror.
Yep.
He did a movie named The Brood before this. Then he did The Fly,
Ooh,
and
God.
then he did a bunch of other even creakier,
What was that like?
creepy things
Was it
in the future.
Brazil was one of his big ones that he also did.
I don't know. That was Terry Gilliam.
Oh, okay,
So,
gotcha. I don't know why I got
different
mixed up with
director.
that. But
Yeah.
he did Blue Velvet. That was him, wasn't it? So that was kind of
No, that was David Lynch.
Good God, what did this man do? He is, however, currently a character in Star Trek Discovery. He's the holographic / counselor dude with the big glasses.
So I will give
That's him.
you. I will give you a little bit of his filmography.
Yes,
so
please.
He did Crash, The Fly, Crimes of the Future, which is that new body horror film, Videodrome, A History of Violence,
History of
Scanners,
Violence,
of
right,
course,
right.
Eastern Promises, Dead Ringers, Existenz. Naked Lunch.
And Naked Lunch with Peter Weller. That's what I was thinking of. I generally try to keep my clothes on at lunch if I can help it. Now he's a Canadian because I know The Fly was filmed in Toronto because you see this you see the
He's from Toronto.
You see the Toronto version of the Space Needle, which I can never remember what it's called, in the background in one of the driving scenes. So that's how I know. So this was wild. Yeah, we have a cast with the exception of Patrick McGoohan, who is the science guy, and then Michael Ironside, who is, of course, one of the best parts of Starship Troopers.
And V.
Yeah, but he also gets to, have makeup torn off his face, which he did in this movie. Yeah, Jennifer O'Neill and Stephen Lack, so the male and female leads, were not and did not become very familiar to at least American audiences. I'm guessing potentially they are Canadian actors, saw them in some other stuff. Maybe they showed up on You Can't Do That on Television. I have no idea.
Yeah, he has not been in. Stephen Lack didn't have many roles. Jennifer O'Neill, she was definitely in more things. But yeah, the cast, except for Patrick McGoohan and Michael Ironside, are rarely, not people that you would probably have noticed.
Right.
Patrick McGoohan, was he in the Avengers?
The Prisoner. He was the star of The Prisoner.
Got it. Yeah. And he's been in other things as well. But yeah, the cast is pretty much not very well known because you spend $3 million, probably not getting, the biggest actors of the time.
The toppest of the shelf. Yeah.
Yeah. And this movie definitely feels 80. So, it's a pretty simple plot. You've got, this underground group of ultimately X-Men who are out and about doing things and under the government's nose. And the government's trying to develop a program that Patrick McGoohan is essentially leading. And he's essentially trying to track down Revok. Michael Ironside, who you see that was in filming of him when he was younger, essentially tried to drill a hole in his head to let out the voices and the demons.
And spoiler alert, it did not work.
Yeah. And so you now are led to this one character, the main character who Patrick McGoohan is trying to turn him into essentially his own spy, Stephen Lack's character, who essentially isn't a good actor, or the script is bad. Because oh man, Charlie.
Yeah,
both.
Couldn't act his way out of a paper bag. No, I completely agree with you. Yeah, there's nothing about this was a film without a doubt. As I was watching it, I'm like, Jesus, I'm bored watching this thing. Because the thing that it's the most famous for. I started trying to bring it up on IMDb, and I was hitting double M instead of double N, so I was getting Scammers. I wonder if Scammers is a movie. Maybe we should add that to the rotation. Because I'm even just trying to remember some of the names of some of the characters, and I couldn't even tell you anybody. But Jennifer O'Neill is Kim, and then Stephen Lack is Cameron Vale. Okay, wouldn't have known. But the most famous part of the movie happens in the first 15 minutes, where Revok is sitting in an auditorium with his handler, or I can't even remember with it, and he makes a dude's head explode. That's the part that you ask anybody about Scanners. That's all I'd ever seen. The most of much of this film I had seen that clip on YouTube. So I'm like, it must have been when YouTube was relatively new, because I'm like, I've been hearing about Scanners my whole life. What's the deal? And I watched that, and that was it.
Yep.
Blammo. Dude's head blows up.
Yeah. Yeah, that is probably the most iconic scene. And the movie, I liked what it did from a tone perspective. It definitely felt definitely low budget, but definitely had a tone where the music was of the time.
Right.
I really liked the tone it set. It felt a little bit off. And you kind of did feel a little bit off put because you're essentially along the way with Cameron, who essentially was a weirdo who was then trained and became normal out of the blue.
Sure, why not?
I didn't understand how it happened.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, and then basically he tries to then infiltrate and find Revok. And then you find there's this longer plot. Eventually, Revok is going to take this drug that the professor made to keep his children subdued and keep them under, I guess their powers under wraps. And he was going to but it actually gave them powers. More
Right.
so than,
It was kind of like, you remember Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire, and he's blasting through one of those things that he goes, children of thalidomide. And I had to, first of all, the classic misheard lyric is children of the little mind, but I had to look it up. So I'm like, what the hell was that? It was this drug back in the 1950s that they would give pregnant women to ease them with their symptoms. And in a lot of cases, the kids were born without arms or born without legs. They didn't use it very much. So they kind of employed that kind of plot line. And it was the same thing. It was the 1950s because now this was the 1980s. Those kids were grown up. So it was one of these, like, brand X or what's like Acme brand, whatever Acme brand,
there was ads in TV or in the magazines for it. Yeah.
Right. So it was
like something. Yeah.
It was kind of like, it was like that. Oh God, that was the other thing we went and saw that Don't Worry Darling, which you said, oh, it's gaslighting the movie, which had a nice twist to it, but it was set in the 1950s. And I kind of thought, like, you open the magazine and there's, ads for, resist, smile, whatever it is. So yeah, it was that same kind of thing. Yeah. This was the big government conspiracy dealio to create a generation of superpowered mutants, and lo and behold, it backfires. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because, like, talked about, like, there was blood. There wasn't a lot of, like, except for the hex building, there wasn't exactly like a lot of horrific scenes, but it was hilarious. Like, this crack squad that went out to attack people, they brought shotguns with them, which I'm like, shotguns aren't stealthy at all. They make a lot of noise and they blow things up. And I'm like, they're just shooting people up with shotguns all over the place.
And nobody's really gonna so much bounce back from the whole shotgun bit. So yeah,
no. And there was one scene that I thought was hilarious because there was some weird undercurrent with the professor. Like, he wasn't all there and he was talking to himself in a lot of weird ways. It's very odd, but the whole concept was, like, they had to break into a computer to find out how this drug was being produced and things like that. And I love the fact that they explain, well, the computer is like it has a brain. It has like electrical system, and you can just go in and control the computer with your brain and make it shut it down. And I'm like, okay, I'm sure this is exactly how computers work, right? A central nervous system, they have a brain, they're living creatures, and that works.
Right. Everybody knows that. It's easy.
And then they cause the computer to explode, and people are just jumping all over the place, and wow. Yeah.
Awesome.
But there was
totally
the flim
awesome.
At the end, Charlie.
I know. There was the big showdown between the two villains, and things were exploding. And, in the end of it, Stephen Lack's character Cameron loses and he dies, gets burned up. And you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And he does the old brain swap. And now he is managed to overtake the mind and therefore body of Michael Ironside. So our hero wins, and he got to kill the villain by killing his brain. Now, does that mean he also absorbed his power? I wonder.
I guess maybe. Who knows?
Could be.
It's, you know what? That's what we're going to find out in that TV series, Charlie.
Yeah. Oh my God. So it could be a continuation. That's what you're saying.
Could be. Wow. The next generation, and less head exploding. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe.
There's got to be some head exploding. Come on, now they're not gonna sell. they're not gonna sell us out
now
short
with
like
30% more head exploding.
Oh man, I'm gonna say at least 35%. Don't sell us out too short.
Yeah. So, how many exploding heads would you give this film out of 10?
I would say for the $3.5 million budget and the effort they put out there and falling in lockstep with kind of how Cronenberg does things, this is like a 6.75 exploding heads out of 10.
I'll give it a 6.5 for effort and tone. Everything else, buyer beware. It's an 80s film.
Right.
So
Yeah.
some are better, some are worse. This one, interesting concept, just really, really struggles.
Right. It's on the struggle bus. My goodness. Crazy stuff. Well, Todd, we haven't even figured out what the hell other movies we're going to watch. So I guess we better not sleep on that. But yeah, this was the first of Shocktober, now trimmed down to 4 weeks instead of 5. Whoops.
Correct. So we've got work to do. We've got 3 more movies coming up. We'll figure out what those are. We may have guests along the way. We'll see how it plays out, but I'm always excited for more spooky content.
No doubt about it. All right. Well, with that, that's the show. Todd, where do people find you out on the socials?
Follow me at Toxtra, out there having a good time, enjoying the world of nerd and connecting with all the cool people out in the interwebs.
All the funky dunky people. You can find me over on Twitter at the C3. Spell it out. I'm really at all pretty much social medias at that. My lovely wife April and I also run the USS Grand Petoskey. We are the premier chapter of Starfleet, the international Star Trek fan club here in Michigan. Find us on a website of that name and on socials as well. I also do what I can when I can to load up news content over on Secret Friends Unite Facebook page. So look for your hot scoops over there. So with that, friends, again, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring and to keep on trucking.
Be the hero, not the villain.
In a truck.
Ouch, my head.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.